this chair, like, unreal, unreal. Like, going
I
from what I was sitting in to this is like
you're
going from like let's just it's crazy, man. Like it's crazy. It's having gone from like a Nokia flip phone to like I don't even know what's a big ass phone now. Like
well, it like to an iPhone. Like
yeah, yeah,
you
like
you
an iPhone plus extra S or whatever.
personally, I will always mourn the loss of keyboard slider phones. I thought they were amazing and still kind of have a soft spot for them.
I had two of them. I
Yeah.
had two of them. One broke because of, I mean, just the functionality. But the other one got stolen. It got stolen from me,
Oh
and I was
goodness.
so bummed because
Good.
it was such a great phone.
All
The
right.
days of mechanical phones.
Oh my goodness. That's why I have a mechanical keyboard now. I think I just needed
Yeah.
like
Oh, me too,
I
man.
needed tactile feedback.
Yeah. The only way it gets better is haptic feedback. You have a little strap you can put on your chest and
Um,
just every key you hit.
yeah, but then we're like getting into like Ready Player One territory, and that can be great or scary depending on outlook.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Oh goodness. All right, let's. I suppose we're supposed to do formal introductions because this is like a video podcast now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh,
Kicking
but
it off new
I
age.
I actually you can't see it because I'm the one hosting it, but I do have Gundam Guys and Guymelef Girls podcast above our two windows. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we're rambling and it's what we do. I might leave a good chunk of that in, but hello everybody and welcome to our third episode now of Gundam
It
Guys and
is.
Guymelef Girls. As the fancy nameplates that I have gone and added, said, I am Kitsun-Eh and I am joined, of course, by my velvet-voiced co-host, Mr.
Hello.
Zavalon. Hello.
How are you all this evening?
Okay, side note. Okay, there is a guy who works at the Shoppers Drug Mart in my local town, and he has, like, this is actually his speaking voice. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing here?
You're one of those hidden nullets, my friend. Get out there.
But yes, so we are,
That will be $27.95.
it was exactly that. Oh my goodness. Oh, but yes, this is our first attempt at doing this video chat style, because of course we're still under the quarantine. Um, Although my day job being involved in construction, we got to go back to work, so I go to an office, but I'm still living kind of a quarantine life, but it's basically in two locations. You are in full cabin fever mode.
I'm full. I'm in my work chair right now. Both
Yes.
literally provided by work and where I sit all day.
I like mad props to your work for agreeing to a racer chair. Oh,
Oh man, you know what? I think she really understood what was going on until it was like pretty much purchased. I sent her the quote. I sent her the photo. Like they all knew what was going on, and put it through my financial girl at work, and she's just like, yeah, no problem. It's like, "Oh, okay,
okay.
click send,
All
man.
right. It's done.
Yeah,
And now I
yeah, it's
said you're
good.
you're. I feel like we should be doing. Have you ever seen the Prince of Egypt, the cartoon?
Oh yeah.
I feel like you, because we're kind of in like, if I take my Game of Thrones sweater off of the back here, and my Kill la Kill hoodie, which is a one of a kind. This is it's a scarf hoodie combo, and it's the only one in existence. So you can see
Ooh.
I've got a similar color racer chair. I feel like we should be duetting. You're playing with the big boys now.
Oh man, what a great! You know what? That was a very underrated movie.
Okay,
It really was. Like,
and that song is the best part of it for the like the two priests are Steve Martin and Martin Short.
well, exactly. Like, people forget about the voice acting that went into that. Like, it was just as far as like actual depth that went into an animated movie for that time.
Yeah.
It really was
It is.
very
It is.
underrated.
If you're into it, it is a Bible story, but if you're into that or just into, animated movies, like that is a gem. And it like is vastly superior to the Ten Commandments if you're looking for a telling of Exodus.
Oh, hugely,
Oh, so
hugely.
good. So good. Um but yes, so we're back for episode 3. We've been talking about this forever, but like you can testify to the fact that staying at home doing nothing will make you want to do nothing even more.
It's oddly exhausting.
Yes.
It's
It's
oddly exhausting
it's
being at home.
it's perpetual
Like
jet lag.
well, it is. It really is. It's funny actually. I had a work meeting today, and we were talking about exactly that. It's having 3 or 4 video calls one right after another. You think to yourself, you're sitting in a chair looking at a screen. Like how exhausting can that be? Exhausting.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
how it's brutal.
Yes. But I said, we knew we had to come and do this because I basically gave you like a laundry list of anime homework, and you have been diligently working on it. And kind of your reactions to it. This is gonna kind of be a you episode. I'm sure I'll start to ramble like I always do, but I'm like really interested to hear how you enjoyed it. And I talked up Neon Genesis Evangelion for a while, and you finally did like the full watch through after years. So it was basically new to you
Yeah.
again, right?
Honestly, like I would say so. It's 26 episodes. We'll say.
Yes.
I think. I think I recalled maybe the first 6
Okay.
fairly decently.
Yes.
So a solid 20 episodes of very little recollection. I remember texting you and saying that like that like it was just so much more than I remembered it being.
Yes.
Like I remembered in high school it being so like all I really cared about was giant robot fights,
Yes.
and it was just so much more in depth than that. Just
Yeah.
just with character development and
That show is not about giant robots. It just has a giant robot
no,
in it.
no. Well, it's like yeah, there's and it's like well, and the further you progress, it's like oh, there's another awesome robot. Oh, there's another awesome robot. There's these 3 awesome robots, but it's so much more the connection
Hmm.
of these people to each other and like to their mechs, for lack of a better term, and like it really is just
and
such
the
an
and
incredible series.
like everything in that show is symbolism, and I'm like I'll bring some stuff up as you talk about it to see if you like caught it on a first viewing even. Um,
Mm.
so we'll get into that. So kind of explain to me and to the viewers your personal mental state as you watched, because I think that is the interesting part of Evangelion. It will play with your brain. And so,
Oh
so,
man, definitely.
so, give me your beginning, middle, and end. Where were you at headspace wise?
So you know what? The first little while, I was I was pretty in tune with just kind of not necessarily familiarizing myself with characters, but kind of you know like anybody would normally do, and just kind of um, making rapport with them and connecting with them and finding where where your similarities lie
Hmm.
and like connecting with each character. And then I found it was one of those things where each character has those different little aspects. Like that show does such an amazing job of making the characters so like such a contrasted extreme, but then yet so relatable at the
Hmm.
same time. Like
Yeah.
Shinji is just such a like excuse the term, but just like such a weak little whiny like bitch.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like you think about what's gone on in his life, and like he's been abandoned, he's just been treated like absolute trash by his father, if he's been acknowledged at all.
Yes.
And it's like it's one of those things. Like I get not everybody can relate to that necessarily, like in particular, but it's just one of those things where it's little bits of these characters and how they develop through the series. It really it's just they do such an immaculate job
Yeah.
of creating such dynamic characters in
Mhm.
that extreme contrast, which I always find is where a lot of, maybe not animes, but just a lot of entertainment in general kind of falls short. Like it,
Mhm.
it doesn't.
And he,
It's hard.
see, as I said, I definitely wanted like your like kind of new perspective, and here's like mine. I've lived with this show basically since I was 15, 14, 15.
Yeah,
So basically half my life I've lived with this show, and I've had time to process and reprocess, and
reprocess and reprocess.
so much background meaning to make sense of symbolism and what was that. But then there's also the fact that the writer Hideki Anno was a dick who filled it with red herrings that mean nothing, but he wanted you to think they were something. He did that all the time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
basically, what I want to say, because we're kind of on Shinji here. The amazing thing about Shinji is that he is so different from modern male protagonists. Your modern male protagonist in anime is, in general, with few exceptions, is meant to be a blank slate that guys get to project themselves onto. Kirito is the ultimate example of this. I know we're gonna,
absolutely.
and you're a fan of that show, but you can admit it. So that's, I think, a healthy attitude.
Oh,
Um,
100%. I'm. The reality is, it's one of those things, and I use that word more than I really should. But I'm a realist.
mm,
I can like something through and through, but it doesn't stop it being what it is.
yes,
And I'm
and
not one to down talk exactly that. It's the same thing. Like Danmachi, Bell,
totally that.
complete blank slate. Like, he's a little bit likable in that sense because he's still that dumbfounded, like, oh goddess, what are you talking about? but but then at the same time he's very um in tune with the fact of like how much he likes eyes, and like he does acknowledge those facts to a certain extent,
Mm,
where in Sword Art Kirito is just like, no, what are you talking about? I have a harem, but
I totally don't notice it.
uh,
Whereas,
women like me.
let's so let's just say the modern anime protagonist is basically the anti-Shinji. Shinji,
Yeah.
weak, timid, broken. Girls like the closest thing he has to a good relationship with a girl is Asuka, and she literally uses him as a whipping
Oh
post.
man. Well, and that's exactly. I think, you know what, I remember texting you the one night, and I was like maybe halfway through these episodes, and I just like, it was one of those things like, and that was partially why I related to Shinji, because like I had a fairly rough upbringing and whatnot, so like I related to him in that way. But I was also a fairly timid kid,
Mhm.
and like I wasn't one to, like, especially at that, like in and around like the like Shinji age.
Yeah.
I was never one to approach girls or
Mm.
anything like that. So it's like I definitely related to him in that extent. So then to see how Asuka like treats him, and like how like their interaction together and whatnot, it was like I remember girls that were like that when I was younger. And it's like I remember texting you, and I was like, man, I've never wanted to smack a virtual woman so much. Like she's just so brutal to him all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like it's he really is that. You know what, actually you put it very, very well. He really is the anti, like, typical male character.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I found, back then, like we hadn't fallen, we hadn't fallen into archetypes because those were the shows that archetypes were based on. You know, like
Very true.
so,
Very, very.
that show was made in 1996. Like, it's an old show, and
Yeah,
it's got,
mid '90s. Yeah.
yes, but it became like so ensconced in the popular lexicon, and even the story of that show being dubbed is a whole amazing thing. And I could do a whole podcast just on that because when I got it as into Ava as I did, I have it on DVD, and I have the what are called the platinum editions, and so they have audio commentary with certain voice actors, the director who was also a voice actor, and that was a whole thing. But
Oh wow.
that again, that show, it just is ensconced in the popular lexicon. So,
That's fair.
and again, said I have lived with it for so long, and to you it's fresh. So that's kind of so that basically covers the beginning. Um, when you get towards the middle, how are you feeling?
You know what? Towards towards the climax, it was very I don't even know how to describe it. I was, you know what it was? I had so many different emotions
Hmm.
of exactly what was going on. It was
Yes.
just so, and I think that's the point where it kind of turned from the focal point being on them really kind of getting you into the idea of like them using these kids as essentially like child soldiers to
Yes.
battle the angels
Yes.
into like they really started kind of like pushing the idea that this show isn't just about like big ass robots killing
Hmm.
big ass monsters. Like
Hmm.
it's so much more than that, and that's where it kind of I find really kind of sets itself apart from a lot of like just a lot of anime and just a lot of like entertainment in that way, and probably why it has, especially now, I find. And it's funny because like if you look it up now and whatnot, like it's gained this huge cult following so many years later because of all of the, well, like you said, like all these red herrings in it that don't necessarily go anywhere, but they're meant to imply that they
So
do.
you know,
And
we keep coming back, rewatching. Like maybe this time I'm gonna figure it out.
well, it's funny you say exactly that. Like I was thinking to myself like a day or two ago, I was remembering one scene in particular, and now it's fleeted my ever sifting mind. But it's one of those things. Thinking about it, it's like, did that mean that? Like what? No, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it. And you know what? It's probably exactly that. It's one of those fleeting moments that it's like, does this mean it?
Hmm.
You
So
decide.
yeah. So I'm gonna put up a spoiler wall here in case we've been pretty vague thus far, but now I think we're gonna get into the specifics just because I want to ask you some questions. Um,
Yeah.
when did you kind? They never really said it outright. There was just like flashbacks and stuff that explained this, but like, when did it click that the whole thing is that the pilots are children in their mother's wombs again?
You know what? I think the very first time it kind of really like clicked and set in. There's a scene where the three of them are all in they're all in their Avas together, and they're I can't remember what's going on, but like um Shinji's like pairing sequence. I can't even remember what they call it. Shoot, that was
The,
a few years ago.
the sync rate thing.
The
Yeah.
sync rate. So his sync rate is something like at like 400 and something percent, and it was kind of the back and forth that they were having between like the control room and then just seeing the visuals of them like within their like inside their Ava's, like the little bulls here and there, and then just like the little twitches he would do. It's actually funny being at this point in my life now. It's one of those things where it really did make me think of, I wonder if that's exactly what Lincoln felt like in his mom's womb. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's one of those things where it really is, it's the imagery that really set it, that kind of clicked it in
Hmm.
for me. And it was one of those things like I thought about it, and to me it was like, oh, it was exactly what was going on. And then the more that you see these, like for example, when they're having the like towards the end where it's getting insanely, I remember the line there one night watching these episodes, and there was one of the episodes was there was an extreme amount of strobe, and
Hmm.
Shinji's it's like Shinji's dead, and they're trying, or like he's essentially amalgamated with Type One, and
Yes, that is the 400%.
And that was, and it was just like the back and forth, and like Asuka screaming to him, and the way that like he was reacting, and it was just, it was one of those things where it was just like I don't know, it was just, it really spoke out as exactly that. It was just, I found it funny how effective the imagery was
Mm.
to explain that without how they pretty much do nowadays. They'll have, like 5 episodes alluding to this concept, and then they'll have that punchline.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's the spirit bomb effect. That's what we're gonna start calling that, the spirit bomb effect. It's like 10 episodes of charging, and then punchline.
Yeah, I said for me on that particular point, I kind of played detective on it. I got all my little clues, and then formed the epiphany. The scene you're talking about, the sync test, is definitely it because Shinji has the line of saying, "This smells like blood, but I feel so comfortable."
I
And
do remember that line.
and so there was, that was definitely a piece, but it was also that when you kind of get bits of dialogue with each child, and you put together that none of them have a mother, all of their mothers have passed away. I'm just like, clearly that's important to this process.
Yeah.
Like that
That's
can't
very true.
that
Yeah.
can't be a coincidence, right? And
Well, not for all three of them. Like,
no,
and they even go into explaining how they chose the children, and you even look at like when they picked up for Type 4, and like that one Ava gets taken over by the angel
yeah,
and whatnot.
that's
Pretty sure
Toji.
even that kid.
That's Toji.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that kid was Toji. Yeah.
Yep.
He didn't. His mom died.
Yep.
So it was one of those things. That was the other thing that had kind of set me off to that concept, was not so much the fact that, I mean, like, I knew that all three, like Ray, Shinji, and her, they, like, none of them, like, they, all of their mothers had died, but it was the fact that they were bringing in a fourth, and just coincidentally his mother had died.
Mm.
No,
It's like
like
they're all
not in a show this deep.
no said they're all the same age, and they're all motherless.
Yeah.
And as they explain this a little more thoroughly in the movie. They show a very clear scene of it happening in the movies.
Okay.
But the idea is that you are a child in the womb, and then that the core of the Eva, that red sphere that you see in all of them eventually, that actually houses their dead mother's soul, and that's how the synchronicity between them is what's able to move the giant robot. And then the ultimate spoilers here, Rey obviously doesn't have a mother. But then when you find out what the dummy plugs are made of, you realize, like, oh, so Unit Zero just always had a dummy plug.
Yeah.
So, but
It is. It's
but also there's also the fact that Rey is genetically, the body is Yui Yukari, Shinji's mother, but she is the soul of Lilith. So
yeah.
she doesn't really need the synchronicity. She is the soul of an angel, so she just moves the thing on her own.
Yeah.
And
Very true, actually. I didn't look at it from that aspect, but that is true.
yes, and it's also why Kwaru could automatically sync with any Eva.
Yeah.
And make one move while being outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, and Kwaru, ultimate, like, not talked about enough thing of Eva, I find. Like,
Yeah.
he's
yeah,
absolutely wonderful.
Right, yeah, no, that is true, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is mentioned very, very little. Like, he's as far as the show anyway, like, I remember of him being explored.
And this is why I think in the show they understood this, and it's why when you get to those reboot movies, when Quaru's presence, when Quaru comes in, and then he comes into the third movie, he gets a significant chunk of that movie, and also his elevated status as Tabris is much more prominent. Like it's very
see that was the other part.
It's very obvious that he knows things.
I haven't actually watched the movie either yet. Like I watched the show to at least get like the basis down, and then I hopped over to Cowboy Bebop just to start kind of mowing down just a little, because I find I'm not getting through it half as quickly as it's starting to build up. I'm gonna be back in 2 seconds.
Okay, we'll cut back from this.
I'm on the second floor, so it's hotter than hell up here. Oh man,
the weather can't make up its mind where we are.
Man, it is insane. In one day, there was, I'd say, a solid inch of snow, and by noon it was melted.
Yep. But
Lincoln was like, "Hey, let's put the pool outside."
Yep. But so obviously you've watched the show, but you haven't done End of Evangelion yet, is what you're saying.
No,
okay.
I have not.
Okay, so
they're there, they're waiting.
Yeah. So the only thing I like to say about that is, if you watch the whole show, those last couple episodes were probably very confusing for you, and nobody would blame you. That happened because the show basically got canceled, and Hideki Anno did not get to make the ending he wanted. So the only way they could make it fit within their budget and time constraints was to basically have those 2 episodes take place entirely in people's minds. And so, and it was, the backlash on that was intense. Like, Hideki Anno got death threats over it. Like, people were very angry at him. And this is pre-internet. Like, this meant, like, people were writing to him.
Literally writing that story.
Yes.
Mailing it, licking the stamp.
Yeah, like, so, like, it'd be wrong to say pre-internet, but not, like, pre-social media, at least.
Yeah,
and so...
Pre-present day.
Yes. And so, after a couple years, Anno, got, convinced, a couple of bigger studios and, money places to let him do his big Evangelion ending, and they kind of agreed on to it because, it was already a cult sensation, and, people wanted, the chance for a big theatrical movie, of course, like, get the money, right? And so he got to tell the ending he wanted, and so End of Evangelion is what was happening in those 2 episodes in reality, although what you're going to see will make you think that people are imagining this, but no, it's happening in real life. There is some crazy metaphysical stuff going on.
Even just you explaining that makes the end much more sensical than it was, because I did find myself kind of, I had rewatched, I'd say, the last 2 to 3 episodes, I think twice.
Yeah.
Because I thought for a second like I was just missing something. And or like I hadn't seen something, so I went back, even like a couple episodes prior to that, like 4 or 5 episodes, and I was like, no, I remember this, no, I remember that, I remember this a couple times now. And it was just those last few episodes just really, well, exactly that, they weren't meshing with everything as properly, and it was, well, now that you explain that, it does make a lot more sense, and now I'm definitely gonna have to go watch those movies as soon as possible.
It will definitely, like, it's going to give you WTFs just as much as those 2 episodes, but it's going to be, there are a couple of, like, straight up, like, truth bombs that drop, like, Ritsuko has a big one, I won't tell you this because it's one of the most mind-shattering parts, but,
one of those.
The fact that Yui Ikari was the one with the big plan all along. That's all I'm going to tell you. Because that is one of the lines that kind of happens right at the end, and it's just like mind-blowing. And but also, so you're gonna see it's like you're gonna see the most violence you've ever seen in Evangelion. This is a rated R movie. Um,
Oh, no.
it's like the most like intense moments from characters, the most violence you've ever seen, the most disturbing imagery you've ever seen in coming from Ava, and
Nice.
and
You see, you've already sold me on it. Now
I
you're
know,
making me more and more
but
stoked.
then also there is like so much symbolism and terminology that you're going to be going to look up later because they're pulling from like a lot of old Judaism and Babylonian stuff, and it's crazy. And so like we'll leave the Ava chat there and maybe come back after you've watched the end of Evangelion because you've been watching another show that I've been very happy that you've been watching, and you kind of really gushed at me about this and I was very happy you did. Like I said, you're about halfway through Cowboy Bebop now, so give those
Yeah.
first couple episodes was like did I like did I oversell it all?
Not even a little.
No, right?
I feel like you actually might have undersold it.
That is a little
Coming
me.
from you, that's a steep
Uh,
that's a steep thing to
I
say.
have
No,
like
honestly,
obviously
you
I'm a
sold me
fan.
on it.
I have my swordfish right here on my desk.
It's you know what it's one of those things, and again, like it's one of those older ones where it wasn't. It was just this precursor to this to this millhouse of that templated. Again, like it's like the vast majority of it, but it's this templated garbage that it's the same character. It's just either black hair, white hair. Like it's
um, I
sword or a
said
knife. It's
Hayao Miyazaki had the best line about this. He got shit for it originally, and then everybody came around. He said the problem with anime these days is that it's full of otaku, and it was like hey man, what the hell? And then you're like, oh, you're saying that anime is now made by people who have watched anime their whole lives, and therefore it's derivative. Like Miyazaki, you're such a genius that we hate you for it sometimes.
virtual five, man.
Just like at
Like
first it hurt, but I was like, damn it, he's right.
it's one of those things. It's like I don't want to admit it, but god damn, you're right.
And
No, and you know what? It really is. It's the show itself is just it's so well done in the way of being just like a like a like a throw to like westerns, but at the same time very
I said,
like
I'm gonna put it out there and say this: Joss Whedon ripped off Cowboy Bebop to make Firefly,
100%.
right?
100.
I love
I
Firefly.
love Firefly.
He did Cowboy Bebop with a bigger crew.
100%. 100% a goddamn ripoff.
Yeah.
That's what that is. I love it. I love it. Firefly is
Yes.
to me even to this day probably one of the best like real like sci-fi
Yeah.
type shows like that.
And I said, well,
Absolutely spectacular.
I will say like theme wise, the space western. I think he totally got from Cowboy Bebop. His show is great because of character. Cowboy Bebop is great because of character. I'm like, what a fantastic protagonist is Spike Spiegel.
Man, you know what? He really is. I'm not usually. I'm very much drawn to a very and it explains why I love these like shonen type characters so much is like that sort of blank slate like derp type person. Like I love Belle for that reason. I like Kirito for that reason. I love um like even if you look at like not even necessarily a derp, but just a very we'll say apathetic
Mm.
type feel to the character, but then still be a super huge badass. Like for example, like a Kame ga Kill. Akame, to me, absolute best character because she's just so. Yes, I'm gonna kill you. It's just to me, I just love those characters. But then you get to Spike, and he's just such a he's just such a shit talky little
He's such a
like
he's a rogue.
rascal.
He's a
He's a
rascal. That's a
rascal.
great word. It's a great word.
He's a rascal.
He's a
He really
total
is.
rascal.
Like
He's
I think it's within. I think it's like episode 3 or 4. I want to say, and I think they're at they're at the casino.
okay.
Maybe
I
it's
got my DVD copy right here. So so the casino. That's when you introduce Faye. That's episode 3. That's Honky Tonk Woman. The big
I think
casino.
that is what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when you meet
yeah,
Faye
because
Faye.
it's episode 4 or 5 that's like the heavy metal
Heavy Metal Queen is episode 7.
7. Okay,
Yep.
so I think it is episode 3. So they do that the chip switch. Like Spike runs into Buddy that's supposed to give
Yeah.
Faye the all being chip or the programming chip or what have
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And those bouncers walk up to him. Sir, you're gonna need to come with us. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. But he just decks him. And his response is just like that. That was like I liked him the first couple episodes, but that was it. That was it. He's like just like
Yeah, okay.
wrong move.
I was
Wrong move, man.
yeah. The funny thing is, I was actually introduced to Cowboy Bebop through the. I saw the movie first. Actually, the movie was made much later, but I saw it at my high school anime club. The great thing about the movie is you can basically, and if you'll make it to the end, it'll make more sense that I say this. But so you can basically fit the movie in anytime after episode 9 because that's when Edward shows up.
Okay.
So the movie can fit in any time after that, and it's a self-contained thing. But
Okay.
and then I came back and watched the show, and it's if pressed for a favorite, I might say Cowboy Bebop for many reasons. But I said the moment I fell in love with Spike in the show is in the first episode when he bumps into the first two bounty marks. One of them's the pretty woman, and she comes up and he has the whole hot dog in his mouth. It's great because they just had they open with the Jet and Spike discussion about not having enough food. They've been eating grilled bell peppers, just peppers, for 3 days, and so Spike has this reoccurring thing of wanting meat.
Listen, Jet. There's no beef in here. You said bell peppers and beef. There's no beef in here, so I wouldn't really call it that, would I?
And
then you know what? It's funny you say that because it really is a reoccurring theme where he's just
it happens in the movie.
That's amazing.
It's instant ramen in the movie instead. And he just and just Spike is mumbling to himself, and Jet goes, "What did you say, Spike?" He goes, "I was thinking about meat."
Oh, that's amazing.
And he's
oh, that's so good.
And I said, again, you put it great. Spike is a rascal, and he's badass.
Well, and that's just it. It's I feel like rascal is almost it's the best term I could come up with so quickly, but it really is. It's just a little bit too childish in the way that he's a rascal right up until the part where he literally does a flying scorpion kick and kicks your face into the dirt.
Yes.
He's such a badass, but then he's just so smirky. Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the beautiful thing about that is you have all these characters and they're all roguish in certain ways, but they all have various degrees of dark backstories. I think Jet they kind of talked about pretty early on. You might have heard that already. You might not know Spike's yet, so I won't say his. Jet used to be a cop, so that's why he's So that's why he's Mr. He's like a gruff old gumshoe who couldn't stand the system anymore. So he thinks bounty hunting is more just.
Well, and it's funny because genuinely, even before they got to the fact where they explained that he used to be a cop, I think that's really all that they really explained too much. And then I think they might have explained how he lost his arm. I want to say.
That
I can't remember
is.
Now I've got too much on my mind to
Yeah.
talk about these specifics.
I
But
think. I think they say it outright in episode 16, Black Dog Serenade.
okay, no, okay, because I don't think I'm that. I think I'm 12. I want to
Hmm.
say 11 or 12, something like that.
So.
Um, but even like
Oh, you saw Toys in the Attic with the living mold. Okay.
that was creepy.
Okay.
It was creepy.
Here's a really funny thing that you can go do after you're done with Cowboy Bebop. Go watch. There's a show called Space Dandy, and it is billed as the spiritual successor to Cowboy Bebop. They're not related chronology wise or anything, except through in one episode that fridge shows up that Spike pushed out into space.
That is amazing. You know what? I'm a sucker for shows like that, like where it's just like absolutely zero correlation to each other, except for
Easter egg.
one tiny Easter egg floating through space. And it's like that. What's that goddamn fridge? It really is just great. But I even like, you know what? Jet really did give me that impression. Like, I think that's one of the things that's really speaking to me so much about this series in particular is they really, really just so accurately and just fantastically nailed down their character um introduction isn't the right word, but like just like how they present a character to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then how they progress that character through the
Yes.
series. Because like genuinely, it was exactly that. Jet from episode one, like even when he's explaining Asimov, the very first bounty, like within the first like 10 minutes
Mm-hmm.
of the series, it was pretty much that's the feeling I got. I was like, this guy's like an old beat cop.
Yep.
Like that's the feeling I got from him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more they like you get into him, it's exactly that. Like he was a cop that for certain reasons he got shit on, and now he sees that bounty hunting is the real way of getting justice.
Mm-hmm. And I said I think it's brilliant the fact that they like there are maybe two episodes you could say that are just giant exposition ones that like go ahead and explain a whole thing. Otherwise, we're doing this character development piecemeal, but not in a ham-handed way. Where through each of these bounties, these cases, because every episode's like pretty well self-contained, we're learning a little something about them all the way through. Like
100%.
like one of my I think I might even be in the first episode when we're getting to know Spike, or and he goes to Chinatown and plays with the nunchucks.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are vintage. Yeah, these are sweet.
He goes up and he says oh, Art of the Dragon model, and it's just like
Yeah.
oh my God, Spike's and Bruce Lee, and that is a whole thing. Like Spike's combat style and bits of his personality are actually modeled after old Bruce Lee movies, and
You know what? I was actually wondering that because, like, in the few fight scenes I've seen, a lot of his motions really did remind me of a lot of like Enter the Dragon and just a couple other like older Bruce Lee movies that I've seen.
100%.
Yeah,
It's
so yeah,
very purposeful, and
okay.
this is why Netflix is actually making a live adaptation of it. And since they did The Witcher so well, I'm gonna give them a bit of faith on this one.
You know
And
what? They've got the budget, and honestly, like having read the Witcher series and seeing how they did with season one so far. Again, I'm new to Cowboy Bebop. Literally, like through my entirety of anime knowledge, I've never actually sat down and watched it. I've known about it. I've been recommended it. Never actually just took the time to sit down and watch it, which now I obviously know was folly on my part. But it's one of those things where if this is done right,
yeah.
it will really
so
revolutionize is a little strong of a term, but
it will
really
be the
will.
first like successful Western adaptation of an anime. Period. Like
100%, yeah.
it's like there have been live action adaptations of anime, but they were from Japan. Like they did it for Kakekuri and Mob Psycho 100, and they were pretty well received. The Gintama movie apparently people liked. The Bleach one was so. I didn't hear people praising that. The Full Metal Alchemist one people weren't crazy about, but
you know what? I heard awful things about the Full Metal Alchemist one, but like I've seen it. I see it on. Well, I don't know about. I haven't been on Netflix. I got a new streaming service, and like now everything that I have on my computer I can stream to the bedroom. So
right.
I haven't been on Netflix in like 3 weeks. It's one of those things where the last time I was on there, I saw it and I let it play through the trailer, and it really didn't look so bad. For like, I saw it, looked up reviews, and people were just dogging on it so hard.
Yeah,
from things like FMA is like, I would say probably top 5 for me of just like all time anime. I just bought the Full Metal edition, like the volume 2 of Full Metal edition, and it's I don't know, like how could you? Well, I shouldn't say how could you do things that bad, but
the answer is they tried to cram everything into that movie, and when you're trying to cram everything in, you got to take a razor to some things, and apparently the razor did not cut well. Like apparently, like they really made like Lust was apparently like more the head of the homunculus when she's a total pawn in every other iteration.
Absolutely.
I think that was part of it. But what I'm kind of getting to is like, since they did The Witcher so well, and we have the casting on Cowboy Bebop, and Spike is going to be played by John Cho, who I love. He's funny. He can do like, he did great action sequences in Star Trek.
His range is fantastic.
His range is fantastic. So he's on slate to be Spike Spiegel, and this is, you know, bad but also sign of dedication is he got hurt on set doing fight scenes. That's why it's delayed right now. So obviously he's committed to this very much.
Yeah, I'm sold with that.
You know,
now I have to look this up.
I hope
what they were doing.
Yes, I hope he's had like a good recovery. This was a while ago that I heard about him being hurt, but I said I hope he's had a good recovery. But he posted this picture of his belt buckle, and it's like an Enter the Dragon type of thing. So it's like, okay, so they obviously get that about Spike, the Bruce Lee thing, so they're leaning right into that. I'm like, we might have some legs to stand on here.
Let's hope so, man. That it sounds very promising.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, heard on set.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Oh man, that would be so incredible. Especially, well, exactly like you said. Like, you know what, Netflix really is. I find their shows aren't. How's the best way of saying this?
I will call them like they're a hit or miss place. Like, not everyone is a gem.
Well, and that's what it is. Like, to me, they're not reinventing the wheel.
No.
They really are taking credible, established, like any type of media, and just bringing it to their platform. Mm-hmm. Where I think their bread and butter is knowing the right type of casting, and they can at least acknowledge staying true to not even necessarily the exact source material, but the themes and the feeling behind what these like shows or books or what have you.
Yeah. So what I'll add to that is, and I'll just say, Netflix for the longest time has been moneyballing it. They're totally based on analytics. And the reason that they are being supportive of these hard adaptations is because Game of Thrones took off. You know, Game of Thrones in its first 4 seasons were hard adaptations and then went completely off the effing rails, but that's a whole other thing. But I'm saying that is where that came from. The fact that analytically hard fantasy adaptations are successful. So that was their whole motivation behind The Witcher, 100%. and
and
then they hired the right people to cast and write. So, ironically, catching lightning in a bottle, which a reference. That is, it's basically a matter of how many of those little girls Netflix shows are going to catch the lightning in the bottle.
Well, and that really is exactly it. It's I honestly can't say it better. It really is. That's what I want to.
So, like I said, but and who they are. They have so much money to throw around, and the fact that they have painted themselves into the corner on people are expecting them to churn out stuff constantly. I'm finding like it's getting to the point where they're basically doing certain shows in certain age brackets. Like there's goodness, I'm blanking on the name of the show, but it's another they're big on puberty comedies right now. I got super into Big Mouth. I think it's brilliant. It's incredibly crude, but executed brilliantly because of who's involved in it.
Okay.
One of their other best shows on there is called Sex Education, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, you told me about that one.
And then it said they basically have another show going on right now that is kind of that too. It's like a puberty comedy, but it's girl centric. But with I think they're aiming for PG-13 on that one. So they basically rehashed a lot of similar themes, but then trying to market to different age groups.
I gotcha.
But like I said, it's Netflix is the Moneyball approach. They are making everything based on statistics. So I will bet that show that they made was because Sex Education did really well. Like it's getting a third season.
Well, it's one of those things. Like I don't know. To me, it's no real way of not sounding pretentious about it. Pretentious might be a little strong of a term for this, but it's one of those things. Like being a man of science and like to me it's like numbers don't lie, like statistics don't lie. Yes, they can be subjective.
Yes, it said this is a great Here's what I'll say about that is that yes, the Moneyball approach seems like it's the way to go. Like okay, we're gonna make 10 Game of Thrones because people love Game of Thrones, but you forget Game of Thrones was revolutionary. That's why, there was nothing like it.
That's more so what I'm getting at is
yes.
The fact that yes, although I am very much like a man of numbers and fact and realism, you do have to take that with a grain of salt in the way that you can't just kind of you can't beat a dead horse and expect it to just keep giving you money. It's and especially just because you've dropped it a few times now, especially with the way that the end of Game of Thrones went, show wise.
And again, that comes back to
maybe I shouldn't go.
Well, I'll come out and say it. What happened with Game of Thrones was one, they got they were doomed to reach the end because of Martin. I to the point where I think he doesn't know how the books are going to end, and that's why he's not writing them. But anyway, they were always had that problem that they were going to hit a source material end. But I think, and it became completely noticeable after a certain point, is they started basing it off of statistics and fan polls. Like, they literally brought Jon Snow back to life because he was the most popular character.
Well, exactly.
Literally brought him back to life.
look at what's his fucking name? And don't get me wrong, I loved the banter, loved his persona in general, but shit, I'm blanking on his name. Tyrion's mercenary buddy there.
Oh, Bronn.
Bronn. He was nobody. He was nobody in the books.
Oh no. He was
But like he's pretty much like third tier main character in this in the movies, the
show.
show.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where, and that's what I mean more so about taking it with a grain of salt. Like, don't start manipulating things to the point where now you're essentially altering the story in its core
Mm-hmm.
to make up for like other shortcomings, we'll call them.
Yeah. Man, I hope this Cowboy Bebop show goes well.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes,
that's the point we're trying to make through all this rambling. But
what are they done now? They've been done for like a year with Game of Thrones, and we're still clearly both very salty about it, among probably another couple million other people.
I here's the thing though, I am not hearing a ton of people saying the ending was good. It seems to be a very universal feeling that everybody felt jilted by it. And it's funny. And on that note, I'm scared to watch The Rise of Skywalker because it was not talked of well.
I have it sitting on this streaming thing.
Well,
I'm a Star Wars guy through and through, and I still haven't been able to bring myself to do it.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't have 2.5, 3 hours to sit there and watch one thing.
I'm a father, damn it!
No, it's not even that. It's like when it gets to nighttime and like my time when I can like sit and do whatever I want, like I will want to like rip 2-3 games of Magic. I'll want to go like play like some Overwatch, or I want to go like watch 10 episodes of Cowboy Bebop or whatever. It's just I don't usually let hype like that kind of like either downplay or upplay whether I watch something or not, but like I've heard such terrible things about this movie where it's like, am I really going to dedicate 2.5? I don't even know what it is. I'd say 2 hours, at least 2.5 hours of my life to.
Yeah.
Just be disappointed.
I said what. Because Nerdist.com, which I still hold a lot of respect for the guys over there, and I understand that a lot has happened over there with who owns the company and whatnot. But in cases of big movies like that, they're a spoiler factory. So I accidentally, got the gist of Rise of Skywalker. And the only thing I'll say is that the real reason that I am turned off already without having watched it is having heard that they retconned a part of The Last Jedi that I really liked, which is Rey's parentage. When she, confesses to herself, they were nobody. When that line came up, I'm like, yes, 100% they were nobody. That's awesome. And then apparently,
now they're somebody.
They are a big time somebody.
That's. You know what? With that, without you even actually literally spoiling it for me, I think you've spoiled it for me, and I'm gonna end up watching it. I'll just read it online. Like, I don't want to waste. To me, it's one of those things. It's like I would much rather invest my time in something where I'm actually gonna literally enjoy every minute of it, like Bebop.
So the only thing that will get me.
Spending.
2.5 hours in that case, right? Near 3. I said the only thing that could possibly save my viewing of The Rise of Skywalker is if I find out there is just a crap ton of Poe Dameron being Poe Dameron. He was. Oh, I love Poe Dameron so much.
He really was just so great.
He was so great, and the real reason that I really was so kind of. Really behind him when we kind of got to know who he was. I don't know if it's Oscar Isaac or Isaac Oscars. he's got the 2 first name thing. The guy who plays him.
Yeah.
He
Doug John.
Yeah, I get it confused, but I have seen him in countless movies that I love, but he plays dickish villains all the time, and I'm just like, oh my god, he must have been so happy to get to play a good guy. Like, because he has played some of the most despicable characters I've ever seen. His character in Sucker Punch is beyond deplorable.
So good though.
Oh, he did a
So good.
where you like got to separate actor from character. Fantastic job acting. Character so disgusting.
And you know the funny part about that, and I've read and seen so many interviews with actors that basically touch on this kind of core value where and you can look at it like even back to Game of Thrones, like Joffrey.
Yeah. That adorable little kid from Batman.
Yeah. Fucking what's his face?
His name's
Boy.
His
Ramsey.
Oh, yeah.
Isaac Oscar Isaac. Like all of these guys, they're all genuinely amazingly nice guys in real life, and that is what they credit to being able to play such horrible people on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because the parallels are just so like they're just so dynamic that it like to me it's funny. It's like, but you're such a nice person.
Yeah.
How can you turn around and play the most disgusting, putrid piece of life ever?
Right. I said so. But that was a case of like him getting that character where he gets to be like snarky flyboy. I'm like, oh, that's gotta feel so good for you.
He just goes up to the director afterwards. Thank you.
Whoever was the director that particular week. How many directors did they go through on that third movie?
I think 4.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah.
Think of it, 3 or 4.
It was something.
You lose count after 2. It's like, right? Really? What do you guys have going on over there that you guys can't keep this shit together?
And like once it happens twice, I know the film's in trouble. I've seen that countless times. Like, oh, now that happened to Justice League. That's why Justice League is a steaming pile of crap.
Oh, it was terrible, man. And like the same thing happened like DC World as far as like live action is just really like they're just taking it like full can. They're just eating.
All the time. Like, here's the problem that the DC verse has. They don't have a Kevin Feige. There is not that one guy on every movie making it go together.
Yeah.
You know?
No, 100%.
From Iron Man to Endgame, Kevin Feige made it happen.
You know what? Like, it's one of those things, like, I feel like Snyder could have been that guy.
Mm.
And like, obviously to no fault of his own, like, I know one of his kids, like, committed suicide or something like that. Like, it was a really, really effed up story. And, like, he tried to bury himself. I can't remember if it was in Batman, and that's why that didn't get finished. And then now they're, like, switching, and Twilight's going to be the new Batman and stuff. Like, I don't know exactly how the story went with that, but like it was a really depressing story to read, and I felt really bad for him. But I felt like, given different circumstances, he could have been that for the DC universe.
Interesting.
And it's one of those things like I find like Flash is done, and to me that was incredibly depressing because like Batman and Flash are, like, to me, those are my two. Everybody is all about soups, like Superman.
I hate Superman
for everybody, and it's like, you know, like I understand the Boy Scout thing.
That's why I hate him.
Or like whatever. Like I don't care. You know what? That's why I loved. I don't know if you've seen it, but The Boys on I think it's Prime or Prime.
It is an Amazon Prime show. I didn't watch, but I caught the gist of it. I'm like, oh, I could see how people would like that.
Absolutely spectacular show. It's basically the Justice League, different names. And the Superman character is boss. He's just such like he's that Boy Scout. Like it's very like behind the scenes media politically driven. So like in front of the crowd, he's I'm Superman. I think he's called like Captain. It's like a really lame ass name.
Okay.
Captain Justice. Or like
Captain Freedom.
Goodall, or no, it's something like that.
Okay.
And, so Captain Freedom, you know, in front of the cameras, but then the whole premise of the show is like Carl Urban and then like these other guys, they check the supers when they get out of line.
Yes.
Which, without giving too much away, you find out they get out of line very frequently.
Yeah, I definitely
And,
caught that from the trailer. And that was, I feel like, a thing they didn't. That was DC's best point of discussion, and they did that in what Justice League Dark and like a lot of the alternate world timelines. Don't quote me on any of these. I'm just piecemeal kind of know these stories, but it was brilliant that this was their thing where like they loved to address what happens when superheroes get out of line. What do we do about it?
one of my favorite superheroes from DC just altogether is Constantine. And
Okay, yep.
he is exactly that. He is the I don't give a shit. I'm still gonna do the right thing, but I don't care if you don't like the way I'm gonna do it.
Mm.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like but going back to the Flash thing, like that movie just bummed me out because the I always want to say Urza because I'm obsessed with fairy tale, but as Ezra Miller,
Ezra
the guy
Miller.
that was he played the Flash in the Justice League.
Yes.
I guess I saw some news thing. He started beating the shit out of one of his female fans, like in real life. Like they have video of it. Like he grabbed some female fan and started choking her on the street. So he's done.
Wow.
The last movie's done, which really bummed me out. I
Wow.
mean, like, yeah, it was wild to see. Like, I thought it was staged. I thought I 100% thought it was staged. It, I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. And no, it was the next day. It was Ezra Miller's career is done. I keep saying Urza. Ezra Miller's career is done. The Flash movie's done. And but like I mean like really like I just bummed me out so hard. But I guess we're getting way off topic from
It's what we do.
Cowboy Bebop here.
It's what we do. No, it's good. It's good.
One
And
topic, on to the next.
I've talked to people couple people who've listened in, and they're not they know me, but then they listen in, and it's like they don't necessarily know anime, but they like when we get philosophical. So I enjoy doing it with you,
I'm glad.
and people seem to like it. But yes, it's a really weird time of like. It became a joke that like, oh yeah, here's another Marvel movie or whatever, and
they were the Call of Duty of they were the Call of Duty of movies. It was like it's November, okay, time for a Marvel movie.
But the thing was, they were always good. Like some were amazing, some were slightly middle of the road. But what was the Marvel movie who everybody said was bad?
Exactly. Exactly, and that's exactly where I was going with that point was more so to the fact that they didn't have to be amazing, digestible, and definitely have a fun time while you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of them, they're all fun, and I mean to me, it was one of those things where like. As a kid, I never got into Guardians of the Galaxy. I knew about Rocket Raccoon and Groot because they were like the animal nature things, and I've always been a big like animal nature person.
Mm-hmm.
But I never read any of the comics. I didn't know Star-Lord. I didn't know Drax. I didn't know any of that. And then seeing those movies for the first time, I was like, these are probably the coolest superheroes in Marvel now. And literally, I have Wolverine and Spider-Man tattooed on me. Like these guys are boss.
Yeah. And I here's a great tie into Cowboy Bebop right here. I think the thematic tie-in to the music on that one is what really made us love the Guardians of the Galaxy. Is because we watch Guardians of the Galaxy and we go, that's the '70s one,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, yes, it's a space show with, like, it's pulling like the Star Trek where it's like dashing space captain tries to nail every alien he meets. That's just Shatner in Star Trek. But like, when he dances through the ruins to Redbone, it was like, that is the movie.
And it really was. It was just so they captured the essence of that movie so well, just in that one scene, and
Mhm.
it played out all the other themes just so well. Like it really is, and more so to your point of relating it back to Cowboy Bebop is there were a lot of parallels in between that I and this was well before I even obviously started watching Cowboy Bebop, but like there were a lot of parallels that how quick that became like one of my more favorite call them subgenres within the Marvel universe.
Hmm.
I love. I mean, I watched a lot of westerns at my grandparents' house growing up.
Okay.
So that was like my papa was like obsessed with westerns. It
Hmm.
was pretty much like when he wasn't in the house, that's when I was allowed to watch something that wasn't a western. I would watch like Tom and Jerry or Bugs Bunny or whatever,
Right.
because those are the only other things they had.
Yep.
But it was I didn't realize how much like growing up. I grew up like as a young kid and whatnot, loving sci-fi, and then that I guess that Western element just kind of stuck with me. So it was like as soon as I saw Guardians, it was like the light version of Cowboy Bebop that I could you know get into as far as the Marvel
Hmm.
universe, and then now I have the full-fledged thing, and then like you're saying, eventually, hopefully the fully full-fledged thing with a live action of Cowboy Bebop. That
Yeah.
man, that just blows my mind.
And
Now I'm
so,
intrigued.
but also, so I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy and how the music is such a huge part of it. How I'm sure you like it, but kind of specific thoughts on Cowboy Bebop being based around jazz,
Love it.
right?
Absolutely love it.
Like I
I uh, this is something I don't think we've covered a ton in this podcast. Or I guess I don't even know what a video podcast is called. Still a podcast?
it's a podcast is a term stolen from stuff that used to be on iTunes back in the day and just became the generic
Yeah.
term for it's an internet radio show with
There
video.
you go. So I am a very very avid we'll say music connoisseur.
Uh,
The only thing
you're my music friend, 100% is what
yeah,
I say.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I play. It's just one of those things. Like music has always been a huge part of my life. Like I've roadied for bands
Mm-hmm.
and like the only thing I can't really get into is gospel, and it's more so with the fact that like music itself doesn't really speak to me. But like I love jazz. I love like smooth jazz, like scat jazz, like any type of jazz, and that was one of the things that I wasn't sure they were going to continue with because I was super stoked on the idea within the first couple episodes that it was a reoccurring musical theme,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, this is sick, this is awesome that
Yep.
they actually have jazz, and then I kind of got bummed out because I think it was in episode 3 there wasn't a ton of music through it. And I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna phase the jazz out. That was
Oh,
the shtick
episode 3 is Faye, and that episode is called Honky
Oh
Tonk
yeah.
Woman.
Oh
And so like and that's the thing, like these titles are songs
mhm.
of various degrees, and the title will tie into the episode itself. So the music they said for Honky Tonk Woman was more along those lines because we were meeting Faye and her personality, but it's not just the fact that they are using jazz, but it's like I find jazz is known for not having rules. These guys, the crew of the Bebop, doesn't have rules.
Zero rules.
They live this free life that is difficult because they live very hand to mouth as bounty hunters. But it's that is their they move through the universe without melody.
Yeah.
That's they are jazz. They live a jazz
Oh,
life.
oh
And
man, within the first like 3 4 episodes, I instantly understood why your sign off line is what it is.
see you, Space
Like
Cowboys.
it's instantly like it really is.
It's very iconic when the episode ends and you see that little see you, Space
You're like,
Cowboy.
yes.
You're
But now I
smiling but also sad the episode's over.
oh, need more episodes next episode.
Right.
But well, now I'm gonna have to watch Samurai Champloo and
Yes, and what I will tell you. Yes. So what I'll tell you about those two is because again, music, big part of it. Samurai Champloo is it is like a samurai show. However, it kind of does the A Knight's Tale thing where it seems to be breaking out of its own time to make a bit happen. But Samurai Champloo, in terms of style, music, and cultural reference, it's all a reference to the Okinawan hip hop scene. So Okinawa is in the south of Japan, but like hip hop culture then was particularly thriving. So it's why so Samurai Champloo is based on that. Like I believe it's Jigen and Mugen. I think Mugen is our main guy. He wears a baggy kimono, like half kimono, and gaita, and his fight style is like he's breakdancing.
It's amazing.
It's all this tribute to the Okinawan hip hop scene. So that's part of that. Eureka 7 is constantly referencing the 60s. Everything in terms of events, and even when you watch, I'll pay special attention to it, every episode title is an actual song from like around the 60s and 70s. The first,
awesome.
And the one I always say to like really drive it home, one of the darkest episodes is Helter Skelter.
In Eureka 7?
Yes.
Okay.
There is an episode called Helter Skelter, and it is one of the darkest.
You know what? I can always appreciate when a show even just does well. Even like I said, even having that one Easter egg, like the fridge floating through space. Like, it's these little connections that shows can make that just give me like the warm and fuzzies. Like it's tying that title to the music or the music to the episode or those little things. Like I'm a sucker for them. I love it, and I find it's a very decent way for them to speak to people's interests and tastes and likes and just I don't know. It's just great to me.
Yep. I said I knew like those shows would speak to you because you're like a big music lover and like they integrate it in this brilliant way. And I said Eureka 7 is a dear favorite of mine. It's it's a longer show. It's 45 to 50 episodes. It's been a while, but the use of their thematics are integrated into everything. So they like have these 60s and 70s songs as episode titles and references. Like one of the backdrop events is called the Summer of Love. It's actually like a cataclysm type of event, but they call it the New Era Summer of Love. And also, the main characters are technically like rebel guerrillas. Like they're all like military traitors who left the military for their reasons that you've got to watch.
Guerrillas. You were like guerrilla warfare.
Yes.
You said gorilla, and I'm thinking Planet of the Apes.
No, gorilla with a U.
G-U, yeah.
Yes, and so they're revolutionaries, we'll say.
Okay. Yeah.
But within that, going back to thematics and tying in, so they as rebels adopt a counterculture. And in that world, counterculture is built around a sport called lifting. And it's because of the way that world works is there's a particle in the air that you can harness for flight. But the way they do it is basically by surfing. So they're surfing on the air, and even the mechs do it. The mechs fly by this method. So that's tying into the 60s symbolism. They're pulling from surfer counterculture.
That's amazing.
To tie it all in. Yes.
It's funny.
And there's even a part where one of the guys on the crew who's not a soldier, not a tech or anything, he's literally a photographer who publishes a magazine. He puts out a zine to tell the people the real truth. I said that's like my pitch to you and to everybody about why you need to watch Eureka 7.
Sold. I mean, like, for me personally, and this is more of a personal thing, again, a little known fact, besides hockey, and that's more just a Canadian type thing, my favorite sport is surfing.
Yeah.
So
that, like, you're gonna love this then.
So
Yep.
that's
Okay.
incredible.
I've given you homework. Well, we're at like an hour 20 with like maybe 10 minutes. I've got to shave off the front, maybe. But we'll do the quick wrap up. So you've kind of been saying what you've been watching the whole time, but
Yeah.
what do you think's gonna be next, or like what's catching your eye to make the queue?
You know what? I mean, I already have Shampoo downloaded.
Hmm.
Eureka 7 is queued up, but you know what? I really think the next one I'm gonna go back to is and we spoke about this I think last episode, possibly the episode for that. I can't really remember, but I think I'm gonna go back and watch Bleach.
Oh
It was
yeah.
one of those ones. It
Um.
was one of those ones like
Well,
again, I
big
watched
news
it in
on
high
that.
school and
Yeah, big news on that front is the Thousand Year Blood War is going to be animated. So we're getting the
very
final
nice,
we're getting the final arc. So it's a good time to start rewatching. Yeah.
amazing,
So psyched.
amazing.
And also,
Oh, that's so sick.
if I haven't sold you on the musicals yet, I need to do that.
No. You can tell me on anything. You're my go-to as far as like
I'm an
otaku culture.
I'm an anime drug dealer. It's true.
That's you know what? Well, I have to type that into my phone now.
Just
Legit though, it's,
message from anime drug dealer.
yo, this is my guy. Shut the fuck up. You need some stuff?
Yo, brother. You ever seen Trinity Blood, man? You got to get on that, son. Vampires eating vampires.
You heard of blood? Blood? The last vampire? No, but it genuinely is. It's one of those things, like just like how long I've known you and whatnot, and knowing how our tastes are similar and differ. It's one of those things. Like your opinion as far as these things go. Like you know me, you know my likes, and I know you. So it's one of those things where when you suggest something to me, it just goes on the list. I don't have to ask.
I do take great pride in being like you're not the only one to say this, but like anime becomes vetted through me, and it is a point of pride. And I like, I try, like, I worry that I'm incredibly pretentious about things, but I've, having an opinion, and I find, if I have a strong opinion about something, I at least have reasons.
Well, and that's part of it to me. Is it's not just like a personal bias where you're just like, well, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like Belle's white hair, so you should watch it.
Mm-hmm.
That means.
I will crap on Belle all day, but I have my reasons about Belle. But then I plug up the show because of everything around him, right? Like, I have my reasons, and I'll say something is bad, and then say like, oh, I like it in spite of that because of these reasons. But like I said, definitely great time to rewatch Bleach, because maybe by the time you're all caught up again, maybe we'll be seeing bits of the Thousand War Blood War, or at least maybe some teasers. There is a particular reason two particular reasons I am psyched for the Thousand Year Blood War to be animated. One of them being Zaraki gets a nice big chunk of that story. We get to develop him, and he's a fun character, and like the fact that they like get into the depth of him, and also, of course, Ichigo's got to have some big arc through it. But we meeting the Royal Guard, and I'll just say this once, for it's a spoilery, but he has a bit of an arc to cover. One of the Royal Guard is the guy who invented Sanpaktos. And he's called the God of the Sword, and I and cannot wait for his arc.
As you said, definitely the time to be rewatching. Especially,
yes.
like, it's one of those things. Like, I've only got another 12 episodes, 14 episodes left of Bebop,
Yep.
so I should be able to get through that within a week. Hope.
Yeah.
Depends on how late I work.
Right.
But, no. Once I finish that up, that's gonna be straight into Bleach.
Right on. And yeah, for me, I'm I have been having an interesting throwback experience where I've been kind of going through my various streaming services that I have access to. I said Amazon Prime is a total crapshoot in terms of like
Yeah.
quality. But I started watching. I have a couple more episodes to watch, but I actually watched the Don Machi side story, which is the first Sword Artoria, which is the first season told from the perspective of eyes. And it's fun because you get to see like the Loki familia, which is really great because they are the exact opposite of Bel and Hestia. Like, yeah, I said we lost Zavalon's audio there, but that's okay. We'll said, yeah, Sword Artoria, really cool to watch that from Eyes' perspective, and I have been giving the original Macross saga a go. So that's been interesting, and it's got me like thinking a lot about mech animes. But we're getting I think we're just gonna have to sign off here just because of technical difficulties. But we made our points anyway. So even though Zavalon is cut off here, I'm sure he's going to say a thank you. And I will say a thank you to everybody for watching this. We're going to be hosting this on YouTube now because we kind of ran out of our trial period on our podcasting platform. And our website might be expiring soon just because it's an expense I couldn't pay in the midst of quarantine budget cuts. So yeah, so this stuff is going to be on YouTube now, and I hope you guys enjoyed actually us having a video of it, and I hope you guys just enjoyed listening as always. So, and hopefully we'll find a rhythm. I won't promise anything because it's who knows in these times. But so thank you to everybody who has been watching and listening and giving us a little bit of feedback. Yeah, we will see you next time on Gundam Guys and Guymelef Girls. See you, Space Cowboys!